Hello everyone, my name is Max in VDW and today I will showcase my new plugin called AirBar. AirBar is a bus bar plugin that allows you to create a floating bar up in the air called the bus bar. And you can use it to show various information depending on events, or you can create announcements. For example, you have specific advertisements you want to show on your server. You can switch between those. You can change the progress as well. So you can change the progress, that purple bar on the top. You can change that, and you can all use, yeah, well, you can change all those values or those texts using my large library of placeholders, which are about, I think currently at the time of shooting this video, there are like 4,000 different placeholders available. So that's a lot. And you can use them to create your custom animations or show specific information in the text, or even use them to change the progress according to the placeholders. So for example, if you want to show your current RAM usage, you can use the placeholders to show the progress. So like the maximum value is your maximum amount of RAM, and the value is your current used RAM, and things like that. Well, there are a lot of options. You can also show like the health of your target, and things like that. But yeah, I think most of it will become clear when I start to explain the configuration. Um, I do have to say, I really hate creating videos like this because I'm really bad at them. Um, Usually well, I'm really bad at them. You will understand. In a few minutes you will think, oh damn, he's really bad at this. I'm going to watch something else, or I'm going to read the description instead. So, but well, in any way, this is just a video, so there is a video, and it's not just like that long wall of text showing all the information. So installation is really simple. You just plug the plugin file in your plugins folder. There are no additional dependencies, so you don't need the busbar API or things like that. Um, and on your first start, the configuration files will be created. So you will see a lot of configuration files and also directories, but I will get into them later. Currently, you just have to focus on the config.gml file. So, sorry, I have to drink a bit. Yeah, that's like the first fail. So in the beginning, you see some basic plugin information. You can also find this information on the description, well, the main page on Spidget. And then we have like the general plugin settings, like the language file. You can show debug messages in your console. You can create a log file. Currently it's enabled, but it also resets on every startup, so it doesn't get too big. It doesn't backup them, so it just resets them every time. Checking for updates, definitely recommended because I update quite a lot. And especially in the beginning, well, the early days of the plugin, it's advised to keep this to true because there will be like performance updates and things like that. Sorry. Then we come to the plugin specific settings. These are like the settings for the plugin specifically. For placeholders, you can log the memory usage. Well, this is actually not important. Everything above this line is not important, so just forget about it. The database is for the toggling, so you can toggle the scoreboard on and sorry, the AirBar on and off. So if I do AirBar toggle, it will toggle it off. And if I type it again, it will toggle it on. So currently, when you leave the game and come back later, it well, if you toggle it off, you leave the game, join again, it will show again because it isn't saved. And this option allows you to save it. So if you enable this, it will create a database file. Default is an SQLite file. Um, I don't see any reason why you should use MySQL, but well, it's kind of easy. You just have to change a few things. But if you follow this link, normally it's for the bucket.gml file, but the principle is kind of the same. If you follow this link, there should be information on how to use MySQL. So yeah, this is just for the database toggling. Disabled worlds could be important to some people. It's if you want to disable the plugin in a specific world, you can add your worlds to this list. Tweaks. Um, this is a bit more technical. So these are some tweaks for 1.8 servers. So currently at the time of shooting this video, 1.9 isn't out yet, but there should be new kind of bus bars in the new version. And I'm definitely going to support them, but I also want to keep backwards compatibility with 1.8. So these are some tweaks for 1.8 clients, servers. Uh, well, it's explained in the configuration. It's just like movement thresholds, entity distance, because there's actually a wither bus following your cursor, and you can change the movement threshold before the wither moves, the distance it is, well, how far it is away, and if it's visible or not. But I think you only want to make it visible if you want to configure the other two options. So yeah, announcements. So default it's disabled. Here you can enable announcements and you can change them. You can set the change interval. So if, for example, you enable this, every announcement will change. The announcement will change every 60 seconds. So after 60 seconds, it will go to the next announcement. After another 60 seconds, it will go to the next announcement, and so on and so on. But I will explain this later. So this is the main part. Everything under, oh, sorry. Okay. Everything under this is very important. So these are old groups. So if you know my other plugins like Action Bar or Tap or Featherboard, you all know I work in groups. So if you want to show a bus bar all the time, if you want to show a specific bus bar all the time, you have to give them the permission. I'm going to type it. AirBar.group. And your group name. In this case, it's default, but default you have the permission for the group default. But if, for example, this group was called Maxim, it should be airbar.group.maxim. I'm going to change it again. And then under that group, you have a list under text. So these are the animation frames. So frames are like the lines in an animation, but I think it's more clear over here. So I'm going to show this in later. Okay, I think this is fail number 2. Yeah, I said I'm really bad at making videos like this. So okay, these are animation frames. So every 40 ticks, so the interval is 40. Every 40 ticks, it will change between those frames. And when the last frame is completed, it will go to the first frame again. Randomizing, I think it's self-explanatory. Run once if you only want to run the animation once, so don't go back to, if you don't want them to loop and go back to the first frame, you have to set this to true, but it only works for announcements or triggered events. And if you want to set it as an announcement, you have to set this to true. So is announcement, you have to set it to true. Well, here I have another example. Example Maxim is cool. I will show this in the, I can show this. So if I do AirBar show example Maxim, is cool, it will show this on the top. But as you can see, it goes back to the previous AirBar. And that's because I set run once to true. So it will only run once. And I also set it as an announcement, but I will explain this later. You might notice these things in front. You also might have noticed that the progress changed. So it went up and down again. And that's because these things, so the vertical lines, but everything between the vertical lines is the percentage. So in the first frame is 5%, 10%, 15%. You don't have to show 100%, but because default it's already 100, but this shouldn't change anything. And then it goes back down again. So 95, 90, and back to 0. And it does this every one tick. So the frames change every tick. So every tick there's another frame. Then we have another example, the example RAM. I'm going to show this as well. Example RAM. And this is something very cool. So you have the rainbow thing, and you see the current RAM usage on the right. But the progress is actually the used RAM divided by the max RAM. So your total amount of RAM is the maximum value, and your used amount of RAM is the value. And to create this, you'll use a slash. So again, the vertical lines, but in this case, I use a placeholder used RAM that will be replaced by, in this case, like 320, well, the number 330, and the max RAM will be replaced by your maximum amount of RAM. And then you see the rainbow thing, just so something fancy, and it changes every one tick. But as you can see, run once is false, so this constantly shows. To hide it again, you have to type AirBar hide example RAM, and now it's hidden again and back to your default AirBar. TPS is kind of the same as the RAM, only I type D20 myself instead of using a placeholder. Yeah. So now for the important thing, let's create some announcements. So the first thing you have to do is set the announcements enabled to true. And for testing purposes, I'm going to set the change interval to 6 seconds instead of 60 seconds, because else we would have to wait 60 seconds before we can show something. Well, before you guys can see something. But this alone doesn't do it a lot. So I have to set this as an announce. So currently, if you type if I'm going to reload, AirBar reload, it shouldn't change anything. And that's because if I type AirBar announcement list, there are currently no announcements for me. So let's give myself permission to a few announcements and also create some announcements. I'm going to enable the default one as an announcement. I'm also going to say that it only has to run once, so not in a loop, only once. I'm going to reload real quick, and now the only announcement I have is the default group. So it will show the default group, hide it again because it only has to run once, and after 6 seconds it will show again, go away, show again, go away, and so on and so on. But let's give myself permission to the example Maximus Cool. So to do this, I'm going to use the permissions. So I'm going to give myself permission for that group, for that an AirBar group at perm v AirBar group max example Maximus Cool, and now it will switch between the default and Maximus Cool. So if I type the announcement list, it will show that I have permission for the default and example Maximus Cool. And the cool thing about this, so the cool thing about assigning permissions to the announcement groups is that you can hide specific announcements for like donators or administrators. So you can only show like cool information and hide the advertisements and donate now things for donators and staff members. So yeah, currently it's looping between those two. So the maxim is cool, it hides, then it shows the example AirBar again, and so on and so on. So I'm going to make these announcements as well. So the example TPS and example RAM. And yeah, I'm going to give myself permissions to those groups. So example RAM and example TPS. Notice that I haven't set them to run once, so they will constantly show until the next announcement is shown. So, well, they will remain visible until the next announcement is shown and then change again. So it's now switching between Maximus Cool RAM usage, example AirBar, RAM again. Oh, what have I done? Oh, I know what I did. So the thing I didn't reload. So it's like now switching between. Okay. So what it was doing now, so I didn't reload, so it wasn't set as an announcement. So what it did now was every time the run once stopped, it went back to the example RAM or example TPS thing because they were my default groups. So now they are announcements, so they should switch correctly. So you can see it's switching between the default example Maxim School, example RAM, and example TPS. And it runs rather good. I'm going to increase the announcement, the change interval a bit to 15 seconds. I'm going to reload. And well, this is a really cool feature. So you have announcements. Announcements are always fun. And now it's changing every 15 seconds instead of every 6 seconds. So it takes a bit longer, I think. Yeah, Maxim is cool. I know that by now. So yeah. Maybe one more thing I should show is, well, here you can configure like the placeholders, but I think once you open those files, you will see what exactly you can change. For example, with the economy, you can change like the thousands format, millions format, if you're using the money formatted placeholder, things like that. You have events. Events are a cool thing. Yeah, they are really cool actually. So these are the trigger events. For example, if you level up on MCMO, you can set it to show, for example, the example Maxim is cool thing. So now if I show the MCMO, well, if I level up, if I enable this and I level up using MCMO, it will show this AirBar for 5 seconds. So, well, even if it runs once, well, it will stop quicker if it's set to run once, but else it will show, well, for 5 seconds if it's on a constant loop. So yeah, these are some trigger events, always cool. If you know, you might need to watch the example video I did for Featherboard. It explains those trigger events rather well, and the usage is actually the same in this plugin. So that's another thing I try to achieve using my plugins. I try to achieve to make everything look as familiar as possible. So I'm trying to keep the same configuration format even if they are totally different plugins. And sometimes it's hard, sometimes it's easy. But yeah, I think it's better to familiarize yourself with my configuration layout than to come up with a complete different layout for every single plugin. So yeah, Maybe one final thing I have to say. So the embedded bus bar API, well, it's not actually the bus bar API that's embedded, but the thing that shows the bus bar uh, only sends about half the packages, so the packets, half the packets a normal bus bar plugin sends. And this isn't because the bus bar API or other plugins are bad, but it's because it's optimized for things like this. It's optimized for fast moving animations. It's optimized for changing the progress accordingly. It's an optimized plugin, and you can definitely expect a large update when the 9 comes out. But I already thought about how I'm going to implement it in my configuration, and I think it will be very easy. So the configuration layout I have right now seems very scalable. I think I can do a lot of things with it. I think I also can do a lot of cool things with it. So definitely check the widget, even if you're not interested right now. Maybe like subscribe to the channel or subscribe to the watch the resource, because there may be some cool features coming in the future. I hope you liked the video. I hope I explained it a bit. I know I'm very bad at making videos like this. I did my best. So yeah, if you have any more questions, feel free to ask them on Freshdesk. Um, Also know that I don't read the discussions all the time, because I get a lot of alerts on Spidget, so I miss them a lot. So yeah, Freshdesk is the way to go. And yeah, hopefully I see you in the buyers soon. See you later.